The villagers had always whispered about her. She was beautiful, yes, striking in a way that made men stop mid-step, their words caught in their throats. But there was something else, something off. The older women would pull their sons away when she passed. Elders would lower their voices when her name came up. No one ever said it aloud, but everyone knew. She was cursed. Her name was Adisa. She lived on the edge of the village, in a crumbling stone house that looked like it hadn't felt laughter in decades. Children dared each other to toss pebbles at her door, but no one ever waited to see what would happen. Even animals avoided the path leading to her gate. People said strange lights flickered from her windows at night. Others swore they heard voices, even though she lived alone. No one touched her, not even by accident. Until Kwabena. He wasn't from the village. He was passing through, young, confident, and clueless. The kind of man who thought the world was his, and no woman could resist him. When he first saw Adisa at the river, he was stunned. Her skin glowed against the fading sunlight, her long fingers stirring the water slowly, deliberately. She didn't look up at him, not once, but that only made him more intrigued. He asked around. The villagers warned him. They told him to stay away. They told him what happened to the last man who tried. But he laughed it off. "She's just a woman," he said. "There's no such thing as curses." That night, under the heavy moonlight, he waited outside her house. And when she opened the door, she looked at him, not surprised, not angry, just calm. He stepped closer, smiling. She didn't smile back. She didn't speak. But she didn't stop him either. And then he reached out, touched her arm, just once. That was all it took. The moment Kwabena's fingers brushed against Adisa's skin, everything around him shifted. The air, once warm and heavy with the scent of night flowers, turned ice cold. The sounds of insects and distant drums vanished. Silence fell like a blade, sharp, sudden, absolute. His hand recoiled instinctively, but the damage was done. Adisa didn't move. She didn't flinch. She simply stared at him with eyes that looked deeper than the sky itself. Eyes that didn't blink, didn't twitch. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Then the pain began. Not in his hand, but in his head. A searing, blinding pressure that pressed in from all sides. It was like someone had lit a fire behind his eyes, and the flames were clawing their way through his skull. He stumbled backward, clutching his face. What did you do to me?" he gasped. Still, she said nothing. She didn't need to. Kwabena's vision blurred, shapes twisted, light fractured. He dropped to his knees, blinking rapidly, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. But it was slipping, fast. The world dimmed, collapsed into itself, until all that remained was black, complete, consuming black. He screamed. The villagers found him the next morning at the edge of the forest, crawling in the dirt, blood smeared across his eyes. His voice was hoarse from shouting. When they asked what had happened, he muttered the same words over and over again. "I touched her. I touched her. I touched her." And then came the worst part. He smiled. Not the smile of a man at peace. The smile of someone who had seen something far beyond human comprehension and lost his mind to it. They brought Kwabena to the healer, but there was nothing she could do. His eyes, once sharp and proud, were now clouded, lifeless. He couldn't see a thing. Not the sky, not the people gathered around him, not even his own trembling hands. "What did you see?" the healer asked gently. Kwabena just shook his head, "It wasn't what I saw," he whispered. "It was what saw me." He sat in silence after that, for days, for weeks. He barely ate, barely slept, and whenever someone tried to come near him, he would flinch and crawl away, muttering about the woman with no shadow, about the touch that burned, about the voice he never heard, but still felt. The village changed after that. People stopped going near Adisa's home entirely. Even those who once pretended to ignore the rumors now walked extra wide around her path. The children who used to throw stones didn't even glance her way. Adisa remained the same. She still fetched water at dawn, still walked the market path with a basket on her head, still wore white, still silent. But now, no one dared meet her gaze. If this story is pulling you deeper into its mystery, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a tale like this one. There are more secrets in the shadows, and I promise it only gets darker from here. Months passed, but Kwabena never left the village. He couldn't. The curse had tethered him there, blind, broken, and yet somehow still drawn to the very force that destroyed him. He would sit by the river, near the spot where he first saw Adisa, whispering nonsense to the water, waiting for something only he could see. And Adisa? She never acknowledged him again. She never looked in his direction, never offered comfort or cruelty. It was as if the moment he touched her, he became irrelevant to her world. The elders finally gathered. They said enough was enough. One evening, as the sky bled orange and purple, the village chief knocked on Adisa's door. His hands trembled, but his voice was firm. "You need to leave, for the good of the village. We don't want any more accidents." Adisa looked at him with those deep, unreadable eyes and nodded. She said nothing, just turned, walked back into her house, and the next morning she was gone. No goodbyes, no trace, just an empty house and silence. But the curse didn't leave with her, because Kwabena remained. And he wasn't just blind anymore. He started to dream. Dreams so vivid and terrifying that he would wake up screaming into the night, clawing at his own face, shaking uncontrollably. He described places no one had ever seen, voices no one else heard, and symbols burned into the inside of his mind. "What do they want from me?" he would cry. "Why won't they stop watching?" The villagers stopped visiting him after a while. Even the healer gave up. He was no longer a man. He was a warning, a living curse. Years slipped by. Kwabena never regained his sight. But that wasn't the part that terrified him anymore. He had stopped fearing the darkness. What haunted him now were the glimpses, brief flashes that came when he closed his eyes. Not of light, not of the world he once knew, but of something else. Shapes shifting in the void. Eyes, dozens of them, watching from behind thin, invisible veils. Whispers, like voices underwater, calling his name in a language no human should understand. He began to speak in tongues, words no one recognized, chanting in the dead of night, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, sometimes both. The villagers started saying he wasn't cursed anymore. He was possessed. Some believed Adisa had left a piece of herself behind. Others believed something older had taken residence in him through her, something ancient, something that fed on curiosity and punished arrogance. One night, a small group of young men, drunk and foolish, decided they'd had enough of the fear surrounding Adisa's story. "She's gone," one of them said. "It's just an old man now. He can't even see. What harm could he do? They approached his hut, torchlight flickering in the dark, laughter in their voices, boldness in their stride. Only one of them returned. He came back pale, speechless, blood on his hands, though none of it was his. He never said what he saw inside. He never spoke again. And the next morning, Kwabena's hut was empty, gone. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just silence. The village never spoke of Kwabena again. His name became like ash in the mouth, unspoken, avoided, erased. The hut where he had lived was torn down, the ground salted, the trees around it cut and burned. But deep down, they all knew the truth. You can't erase what's already woven into the soil. Adisa's legend lived on, not as a woman, but as a force. Children were told, never touch what you don't understand. Elders would glance nervously at the forest line if someone mentioned her name. And when travelers passed through and asked about the blind man who lost his mind, they'd hear only one answer. He touched her. They never said more than that. But every now and then, when the moon was low and the night too still, someone would see footprints near the river. Not one set, two. And they never crossed paths. They circled each other, always chasing, never meeting. The curse hadn't ended. It had only changed shape. And it was waiting for the next curious soul. What do you think truly happened to Kwabena? Was he cursed by Adisa, or did he awaken something far older and darker? Share your theory in the comments. If you enjoyed this tale of forbidden touch and eternal consequence, don't miss the next story. The teacher who smashed every girl in the village in one day. Tap now to uncover the darkness behind the lesson.